Every single medical device company I've ever talked to, when they talk about the objections to getting broader adaptation, it hinges upon one thing. They say, well, is Mayo Clinic using it? Is Cleveland Clinic using it? Is Harvard, is Harvard using it? How do you go from a system in New Jersey to much broader adaptation? How do you get that customer adaptation in a fairly conservative audience?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, so Clover Assistant for the most part initially scaled in our New Jersey markets, and then the 200,000 lives we're bringing on to direct.
That's not Mayo, though.
Correct. And then the 200,000 lives that we're bringing on April next year, half of them are non-New Jersey, and these are physicians adopting Clover Assistant who actually were not familiar with Clover Assistant prior. And so when you think about what primary care physicians care about versus interventional cardiologists, orthopedic surgeons, so there's a huge body of data appropriately on device efficacy. I think it's some of what you're referencing, right? So whether you use a certain implant or whatever it may be, that relies heavily on, do you have the right orthopedic surgeons as part of your clinical trial advocating for the device or product? Primary care, when we think about chronic conditions, which drives over 90% of costs in Medicare, and unfortunately, any one of us at some point in our life will probably end up with one or more chronic conditions. They range from diabetes, congestive heart failure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. These are conditions that are really around appropriate treatment or management of conditions while you have them. So hospitals, a lot of the organizations you described are hospitals. They are managing your care once you've hit the emergency room and now you're an inpatient. The condition has exacerbated. You are now in need of a complex surgery and a very specific type of surgery and a certain quality surgeon. So when you think about hospital care, that's a narrow segment of care, a very high cost component of it as well. And when you think about managing primary care, that's really around presenting to physicians, not Mayo protocols or not Mount Sinai protocols. It's actually presenting peer-reviewed evidence-based protocols. And that is not necessarily tied to brand, it's tied to evidence. It's tied to already been published. And so even when we think about surfacing diagnoses, when we're surfacing diagnoses, it's tied to rules engines. So a EGFR result between 30 and 60, which means the particular patient may have chronic kidney disease, but stage 3, asymptomatic, only really denoted by a lab result. But at the same time, that's how the literature lays it out. And so if that data point's not presented to a physician at the point of care, he or she is not going to diagnose that condition. And it's going to end up progressing, probably about a third of the time elicits elevated thyroid hormone levels, and your bone breaks down and you fall and you break your hip. And that's healthcare today. And so that's where data paired with evidence presented to a physician, where the physician can now make a better decision. So we're not in the business of, nor will we ever be, telling a physician what to do or not to do. It's really presenting evidence to take that 10 to 20 minute visit and make it more valuable, whether it's assessing a condition that wouldn't have otherwise been assessed, presenting machine learning algorithms that actually will generate what a potential diagnosis may be without actually saying it does or doesn't exist. It's just what our data shows could be present, and that prompts a conversation that may or may not lead to a condition being captured. But kind of to your point of how the space looks at software and technology, when organizations are building technology for physicians within healthcare, it's almost as if they throw away the software playbook that has worked for successful companies outside of healthcare. So if we take businesses like, whether it's Amazon or e-commerce company like that, they have to, one, make sure that the data that they're presenting to consumers is trusted and can be relied upon. Two, so in terms of that the product picture is accurate and the shipping time is accurate. Two, they need to make sure the payment construct's accurate. Is the price you're being told to pay actually the price? If you're saying it's ranked from low to high in price, is that actually the truth? Is that how it plays out? And then in terms of features and consumer value, is that continuing to improve rapidly over time? But in healthcare, that's not how software is built. So when we thought about building great software, only one aspect was we need to make sure this can add value to physicians and drive really rapid feature development. That was key. But the first part was we need to make sure that the data we're presenting to physicians can be relied upon, it's accurate, it can be sourced, whether if it's an evidence-based protocol, that could actually be brought up at the point of care in terms of what evidence are we citing, or if it's a lab result, where did we get that lab result? If it's based upon a claim that led to a chart that we pulled that had conditions on it, which physician did that come from? And then in terms of the payment side, are physicians penalized for not agreeing with the Clover system? Are they rewarded for agreeing with the Clover system? We actually don't do either of that. From our perspective is a physician went to medical school for 4 years, fellowship, residency, practiced for many years, took the Hippocratic Oath, really cares about his or her patients. We believe fundamentally that if we pay physicians fairly and more, obviously for now using an additional piece of software at the point of care and give them better and more accurate information, actionable data, and as Andrew described, a true real-time conversation, their decision-making is going to improve for the benefit of the patient. And we do not modulate payment up or down tied to what buttons they're clicking on in Clover Assistant. And just that very simple construct, that is not accepted philosophy in incumbents. You cannot get them to agree to pay physicians the same amount for using software, irrespective of what they're clicking, irrespective of acuity, because there's an obsession in value-based care down to paying for everything that what we agree with as a payer or penalize if we don't agree with it. And the intent is proper, but that is not how you build trust with physicians on the payment side.